And we're going to bring in our Home and Security editor, Mark White, who has some breaking news for us. Mark.
Well, a couple of breaking lines on the investigation into that incident in Liverpool on Monday. Confirmation that the 53-year-old suspect is going to be held in custody for a bit longer. Police have been granted more time. They have to go to a magistrate to get an extension, but they have an extension in place until tomorrow to continue questioning this individual. And also they confirm that the number of people that they know to have been injured in this incident has now increased to some 79. So a very significant number of people injured in what happened at that victory parade for Liverpool in the city centre there. We've had a statement which I'll just read out to you. It's worth reading, I think, from Detective Superintendent Rachel Wilson from Merseyside Police. She said, "I'm pleased to say that the number of people in hospital is reducing." So it's now, we're told, from 11 yesterday down to 7 who are still in hospital today. And they continue, she said, to recover from the awful incident. "We continue to support those still receiving treatment, and as part of our ongoing inquiries, we are identifying more people who were injured. I want to reassure the public," she says, "of Merseyside that detectives are making significant progress as we seek to establish the full circumstances that led to what happened. In addition," she said, "extensive CCTV inquiries are being carried out across the city to establish the movements of the Ford Galaxy before the incident took place. We've already had an incredible response," she says, "from many of those who were there on that day." And again, she just goes on to thank them. And again, she would encourage anyone that's not yet contacted the police with information, or indeed to say that they may have been injured in that incident, to do so. So police making some progress. They're still not at the stage where they are charging anyone in connection with what happened. They have been granted that extension. They can get an extension, incidentally, up to 4 days. So they can be held for 24 hours, then a superintendent level or above has to grant an extra 12 hours. If they want to go beyond 36 hours, you have to go to a magistrate, but they can continue with these extensions if it's a serious offence, if more evidence needs to be gathered for up to 4 days.
It's normal then for the police to need an
It can be
extension.
quite normal and complex, for instance, complex murder investigations. Okay. So yeah, it can eke into that time quite significantly.
But of course, what the police said when the incident happened very quickly is they're not looking for anyone else in connection with this incident. I suppose if they are to charge an individual as time goes on, they'll want to know what to charge said individual with. And I suppose that means finding what the motive was, if there was a motive.
Yes, we'll certainly be trying to establish if there was a motive at play here, or what on earth the incident was all about in that sense. But they can charge, effectively holding charges, that can be amended at some point further down the road when more information comes out. So, for instance, they could, charge this individual with a number. He's being held under on suspicion of attempted murder. They could charge him with a number of attempted murder offences, or even dangerous driving under the influence of drugs offences in the meantime. And as I say, that can be added to. We often see that in cases where, in the weeks and months leading up to a trial, additional charges might be added to the indictment or taken away from the indictment. So they can do that. But clearly, they felt the need, for whatever reason, to have a bit more time before they get to a charging decision, and a magistrate's agreed with that. So tomorrow, again, we'll be at a place where we'll either hear from the police that they've been granted a bit more time, or we'll get a charge through. But I think probably the most significant thing out of that was the good and encouraging news that the number of injured still requiring hospital treatment has reduced by 4, so from 11 down to 7 now, still in hospital. But the overall number of injured has been revised up, because what's been happening is people who probably suffered relatively minor injuries have gone home and maybe then have reported the next day or whatever to a hospital or to the police about their injuries.
Yeah, and presumably in all this time as well, the police are scouring CCTV footage, speaking to eyewitnesses, speaking to businesses perhaps who are in the area.
Absolutely right. And they've been incredibly aided by the fact that there were so many people in that area at that time, thousands and thousands of people, and also many of their own officers. So they'll have this incident because we saw police chasing the car for a time. Some of that will have been captured on the body-worn video of the police officers who were right close to the incident as it unfolded. There's so much in the way of city centre CCTV cameras to look at. There will have been overhead, I'm sure, the police helicopter. You would always get that at mass sort of crowded events, such as an event like this where more than 100,000 people were in Liverpool city centre. The police helicopter probably captured a fair bit, and shop CCTV cameras. We know that some of the media have been able to find their own images from CCTV in the various shops along the route that show this incident unfolding as well. So there will be, without a doubt, a very significant number of sort of evidential elements that the police will be assisted by. Having said that, they've got to go through all that, and that takes a long time. And
in the meantime, an extra 24 hours for this individual they're holding?
Well, into tomorrow. We don't know if it's 12 or 24, but into
see what happens, basically. OK, Mark White, thank you very much indeed, our Home Security editor there. Now, staying on the theme of crime and punishment and policing, some of Britain's most senior police chiefs are warning that the government is set to fail on delivering their police reforms. They want extra funding, and there are also many other concerns. Absolutely. The Met Police Commissioner, Mark Rowley, has not only said that there's a 1.3 billion shortfall in funding, but also that the government's proposed sentencing reform, that will put extra pressure on police officers because there'll be more perhaps dangerous criminals released early or never sent to prison at all about in the community, and they'll need more policing. Yeah, Mark Rowley, he was talking about how much resources had gone into tracking down a guy with a machete for him to then only be put on bail, right? Exactly. So someone they previously arrested under firearms and machete offences that they then had to release. Yeah. And then they spent all of yesterday, apparently, multiple police officers chasing around London, using up Met Police resources to catch the guy they'd already caught, who, by the way, had got himself another machete. Right, OK. Well, we're joined by former Met Police Senior Investigating Officer Peter Kirkham. Thank you very much for joining us, Peter. Clearly, there are huge concerns among the policing community as well as MI5, the National Crime Agency, etc., that the government hasn't quite thought through the implications of the early release scheme, for example, sentencing reviews and everything else. What do you make of it?
I'm broadly with the concerns being expressed by the police and other law enforcement and security services. You can only get decent policing by spending money. It's a people business. It involves boots on the street. It involves people looking at anything that's created by artificial intelligence, looking at mass communications or whatever it might be. You can't do it without human beings, and human beings cost money. The costs that businesses complain of going up around national insurance and things like that, those costs of doing business apply to the public sector just as much as they do to the private sector. And the police in particular also still suffering from a retention crisis that's probably as bad as any, if not worse than most, in the public sector, in that the money just isn't commensurate with the risks and nature of the job involved. So hanging on to good police officers, recruiting them in the first place and hanging on to them is difficult. All of these things cost money.
Yeah, it does seem that there is this shortfall that more and more police officers are talking about, but perhaps that's only the tip of the iceberg. If we're going to be into this world with more criminals who need, for want of a better phrase, care in the community rather than being banged up in prison, I mean, that's going to increase an already stretched demand on police services. For
sure. And there are limitations to that. If someone is out in the community on a tag or on a curfew or on a residence note or whatever it might be, they also are at liberty to breach those restrictions if they so wish, to remove their tag or to breach their conditions of curfew or whatever it might be. And that requires police to then pick up the pieces afterwards. The probation service need resources to monitor, but the police then need resources to deal with any breaches that are reported to them by the by the probation service. And so there are significant costs and potential costs inherent in trying to have sentences within the community rather than behind bars. It's not a zero cost option. Yeah. Quite the contrary, it's probably near enough as expensive once everything is added together as having someone in prison. It just doesn't need the cell space.
OK, well, Peter Kirkham, thank you very much indeed for your insight on this. Former Met Police Senior Investigating Officer there.